Hello everyone, welcome back to IT Era. I'm Priyanka. In today's session, we are going to discuss some basic OOPS interview questions and answers which will be helpful for beginners. So let's begin and stay connected till the end. Starting with the question number one, what is object oriented programming? Well, quite a simple and basic question to start interview. It stands for object oriented programming. It is methodology to design using classes and objects. We can also say like that it is a type of programming that is based on objects rather than just functions and procedure. Now, concept of OOPS is based on its pillars. So our next question can be what are main feature of OOPS or pillars of OOPS? Now, to answer this question, you can say there are four major features of object oriented programming which are also called its pillars. First one is abstraction. Abstraction is a process of present only necessary features of entity. Next feature can be encapsulation. It is a process of hiding complexity of program. Also, it binds data and code into a single unit. That is object. Here I am just providing overview of these features because question is just about what are features. When interviewer will ask, explain it in a detail, then only we should explain it. I will cover it in upcoming questions. Another feature is the inheritance. Inheritance refers to reusability of code. And the last feature is polymorphism, which means one name, many form. We can create method with the same name with a different implementation. Let's move to the question number three. That is what are classes and object in OOPS. Start with a class. A class is a blueprint or a template of an object. It is user defined data type. Inside class, we define variables, constant, member of function, and other functionalities also. It does not consume memory at runtime. Note that classes are not considered as a data structure. It is a logical entity and it is best example of data binding. Moving towards object, an object is a real world entity that has attribute, behavior and its properties. It is referred to an instance of class. It contains member functions, variable that we have defined in the class. It occupies space in a memory when they are created. We can also add one more point is classes are declared just once, but object can be declared as and when required. Moving forward to the next question, what is abstraction? Definition of abstraction is nothing but show only necessary. It simply hide functionality. In other words, we can also say that abstraction represent what object does instead of how it does. Let's take an example of employee management system. Keep in mind, always try to give a practical and real life example instead of cars, which we had read in our book. So in employee management project, we create a class employee which have a data type functions in that. But when we create an object of that class and access that object, then we can see only function name of the class instead of the implementation of that function. So that is the abstraction. It represents what object does instead of how it does. And abstraction also has a relationship like class has entity or employee has name, employee has ID like this. Abstraction is implemented by using abstract class or creating object. Let's move to the next question. What is encapsulation? Encapsulation is a process of binding data and code in a single unit that is object. We can also say that it is a process of hiding complexity of program and showing only that is user needed. Using encapsulation, we can achieve information hiding by using access control modifier and implementation hiding by using interface for the classes. Let's move to the next question. What is inheritance? Inheritance is a process in which one object acquires all properties and behavior of its parent object automatically. In such a way, we can reuse, extend, or modify the attributes and behavior which is defined in parent class. As we can reuse the member of the parent class, there is no need to define the member again. So less code is required in a class. For example, if we have two type of employee, full time full-time employee and part-time employee, and both have the name, ID, address, date of birth, date of joining, designation, such a common fields, and also uncommon field such as salary calculation method, such as full-time employee have a monthly salary and part-time employee have a rate per hour. So instead of declaring these fields again and again in a different class, we can create one base class as an employee and which will have all common fields and methods. Then we can inherit the full-time employee class and the part-time employee class from our base class. In such a way, we can reuse the variables and the methods. Okay, moving forward to the next question. What is polymorphism? Polymorphism means one name, many forms. A single method can have multiple behavior and multiple implement. Here there are two type of polymorphism. One is a static or compile time polymorphism and another is a dynamic or a runtime polymorphism. To give an example on a polymorphism, here I have listed this method. Get employee by using employee ID, get employee by using department ID, get employee by using name. Here we are looking for employee details by passing different parameter. So our all method have a same name but their implementation will be different. This is the way how we achieve polymorphism. After this, next question by interviewer can be difference between compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism. In compile time polymorphism, method is called or invoked during compile time, whereas in runtime polymorphism, at runtime we came to know which method is going to invoke. Compile time polymorphism also called early binding or a static polymorphism and runtime polymorphism also called late binding or a dynamic binding polymorphism. Inheritance is not involved in a compile time polymorphism, but inheritance is involved in a runtime polymorphism. Method overloading is an example of compile time polymorphism and method overriding is an example of runtime polymorphism. Compile time polymorphism has faster execution because method discovery is done during compile time only, whereas runtime polymorphism has slower execution because method discovery is done during the runtime. That was the differences. Move on to the next question. What is constructor and destructor? Let's begin with a constructor. A constructor initializes state of an object and it get invoked at the time of object creation. A constructor is an instance method that has usually same name as an class. Now talking about destructor is a method which automatically called when the lifetime of the object end. The purpose of destructor is to freeze up the resources. So that's it for the today's session. This was the part 1 for the basic interview questions and answers on OOPS. Very soon I will come up with new more questions and answers on OOPS concept. So stay tuned with us. Also subscribe my channel, click on the bell icon. Thank you for the listening.